I'm sure that some of you are looking at this title and wondering what the nature of this movie is. To clear up, this is not a sequel to Disney's direct-to-video sequel of 101 Dalmatians. It's also not a sequel to some non-Disney movies called Dalmatians and Dalmatians 2. Dalmatians 3 is just an alternate title to a Dalmatians movie by Dingo Pictures. Based in Germany, Dingo Pictures is an animation company that made movies in the late 90s and early 2000s, and in recent years has gotten the reputation of having created some of the most hilariously terrible cartoons ever. I don't know how much traction they had in Europe, but it seems like before the internet, the only exposure people on this side of the pond had was with video game releases like this one. Made by Midas Interactive and Phoenix Games, these releases were just the movie put on a game disc with coloring and basic puzzles slapped in. And while the copying in the original Dingo movies seemed limited to tracing character designs, these game releases really tried their hardest to trick consumers, with titles like Lion and the King, Dinosaur, and of course, Dalmatians 3, the PS2 release. Check out this title screen. See the Cruella de Vil knockoff and those two adult Dalmatians? They're so important that they don't appear in the actual movie. Okay, there's a lot to get through, so let's get started with Dalmatians 3. This cartoon begins with 3 dogs and a cat farting around in front of 2 houses.
My bowl is empty. It must have been Charlie.
Instead of asking the voice actor to do another take with a better gasp, they just added a female gasp noise they already had. That's pretty much Dingo Pictures in a nutshell. If you watch any of their movies, you'll pick up that their mantra is recycle, recycle, recycle. They reuse voices, names, character designs, animations, backgrounds, music, and even use clips from older movies to pad out newer movies. There is no corner Dingo won't cut, and it really shows. For example, in this movie, the cat and beagle are copies of character designs from other Dingo movies. What character designs they don't reuse, they normally steal, as the Dalmatians in this movie just look like the Dalmatian puppies from the Disney movie traced over in Microsoft Paint. I guess they could only be bothered to do that once though, so for the second Dalmatian they just colored the ears slightly differently.
One of these days, I'll beat him up so bad that he doesn't know who he is.
Yeah, sure, that seems like a proportionate response.
Since when do dogs allow themselves to be tyrannized by a stupid cat?
Well, this movie doesn't know what tyranny means.
I brought you something to make up for it.
And what may that be?
Cake. An A1 doggy cake.
It looks rather tasty.
Of course it's tasty.
And it doesn't know what cake means either, that's nice. About the cake that's shaped like dog treats, it's just another prank by Charlie. And suddenly the story is being told to us by a crow. There's not really a reason for it, and it doesn't add to the story. It does add to the confusion later, but we'll get to that. In the meantime, the dogs enact their revenge.
There's this dumb little mouse that's been annoying us all morning. Won't you catch it for us?
Oh, to catch a mouse. Sure thing. Where is it? It's gone back into its hole over there, but I'm sure it'll be out again soon.
There are no second takes in Dingo Land! So get used to that. The dogs get their little revenge on Charlie and get scolded by their owner. Some unspecified length of time later, Charlie shows up with a gingerbread heart. Gingerbread hearts are a traditional German treat, commonly sold during Oktoberfest and Christmas time. If you, like Dingo, are from Germany, you probably already knew that. But since I'm decidedly not, I thought it was something Dingo was just making up until I googled it. Touché, Dingo. It seems I've underestimated you. Anyway, back to the cartoon.
It's a gingerbread heart. See, there's even something written on it. Kiss me. Ugh, who wants to kiss you? You're just jealous.
This is what happens when you have the same guy voicing 2 lead characters and don't even have him try different voices.
At the market? Our old lady has a birthday coming up. A heart like this would be great as a present for her.
I also have a birthday coming up. Me too.
And that's what happens when your editor is some guy off the street that you paid with a 6-pack of beer. The 3 dogs, named Pino, Sasha, and Lucy by the way, decide to bring stuff to trade for the gingerbread hearts the next day. This gives us an opportunity to get acquainted with the horrible walk cycles in this movie. I have never seen an animal walk by shuffling their feet like that, but it's the default in Dalmatians 3. It's not like the run cycles are much better either. When they get closer to the market, they hear carnival music, because it's Oktoberfest or Christmas, apparently.
I can hear music. It must come from the market.
You're right. Oh, I can smell the gingerbread already.
And almonds and popcorn. Lucy, can we also buy some popcorn? Maybe, but let's first get the gingerbread hearts.
You've probably already noticed that the two Dalmatians are also voiced by the same person, and she is also not really trying to do two different voices. That's pretty bad, but that is just the tip of the iceberg in this movie. I can't confirm this, but I am almost certain that there are only two voice actors in this dub. That's right, just this one man and one woman handle every single voice in this movie. If that's not the case, it really sounds like it, and I'm very good at distinguishing voices. This is cheap, even for Dingo. Normally they have at least 4 actors per movie, but I guess that 2 of them weren't available on the one day that they allotted to write, record, and edit this awful dub. Anyway, the dogs get in trouble with the law when they're suspected of trying to steal the gingerbread. And dogs and humans can talk to each other in this movie, apparently. Once again, it doesn't really add much, but it does allow for this humorous exchange.
These dogs here wanted to steal my gingerbread hearts.
But that's not true. We didn't want to steal them, just to look at them before we buy them. Why? Do you have any money?
No, not directly. We wanted to do a swap.
Even so, it's kinda pointless, since humans and dogs never talk outside of this scene. The dog catcher would probably be after them anyway, considering that they're dogs without collars walking around with no supervision. Best owner ever, by the way. Pino and Sasha are caught, and Lucy cries wee 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 all the way home. She tearfully tells Charlie what happened, and he decides to help her.
Have you come up with anything?
Are we recording yet? Good. You're gonna edit that out, right?
I don't think Charlie's so bad after all.
That's nice. Who are you again? Charlie comes back with a laptop briefcase and says it'll use the internet.
I don't want to go onto the internet. I want to go to Pino and Sasha.
I totally know what the words in front of me mean. They look up lost dogs and find 3 places in town where they could be. They set off to look for them the next day. It's not like saving their friends is that urgent. Speaking of, we follow them to the dog pound and we meet a crap load of other dogs, including the villains, Castor and Pollux. I think that they're supposed to be brothers since they're literal copy-paste of the same dog, but it's actually pretty easy to tell them apart since Pollux is voiced by the woman.
What are you talking about? We want to know everything that's said here.
Don't worry, the Castor voice is just as silly.
2 new ones. Oh, well, welcome to the dog pound, Castor and Pollux.
These 2 really are gifts to this movie. Every time they talk is just amazing.
What's going on?
They seem to have a history with Pino and Sasha's parents, but before we get into that, we meet the other inmates, including Freddy, a dog with a slingshot around his neck that randomly disappears and reappears throughout the whole movie, Butch, the group idiot, Mr. Bloom, who likes wearing glasses and being condescending, and Boss, who despite apparently being a stray is the only dog in the entire movie that actually wears a collar, except when he doesn't. Like Castor and Pollux, the dog gang also has a history with Pino and Sasha's parents. I know that the father is named Crummel, but I legitimately don't know what the mother's name is. I don't think the movie does either, because they never say it clearly and it sounds different every time.
Tüpfelchen.
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 Tüpfelchen. Tüpfelchen. Tüpfelchen.
Tüpfelchen. Oh, Tüpfelchen.
I have to call her something, so for this review I'll just use my closest guesses. One of the other dogs in the pound asked about the history that Castor and Pollux had with Crummel and Templeton. So we slam the brakes on this story just to tell a completely different one, but with the crow still in it. Maybe they just wanted to pad out the movie, but I think it was just so that they could reuse character designs within the same story. Yes, Crummel and Turpentine look exactly like their kids, because that's how that works. They went to get help from the dog gang since Triple Chin's brothers, Toby and Timmy, were captured by Castor and Pollux. Somehow. And where are they being held, you may ask? You might want to be sitting down for this.
Lick and stick. Lick and stick. Lick and stick. Lick and stick. Lick. 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 Lick and stick. What's this? Faster!
But I'm thirsty.
Your last eating wasn't enough, I see.
Please don't. I'm okay again.
Yes, you are seeing this right. They're being held in a dog sweatshop. This raises so many questions, but for me the most pressing one is, what are they making? The way they say lick and stick makes me think that it's envelopes or stamps, but the actual items on the conveyor belt look more like sardine cans or something. After this wonderfully horrible situation is revealed to the dogs, they talk about what to do.
Let's beat Custer and Pollux to a pulp.
Why is curb stomping always plan A in this movie? Anyway, the dogs are angry, but since they're all stupid, they decide to sleep on it and come up with a plan in the morning. This annoys Tube Fusion, who walks over to the factory herself, only to get caught almost immediately.
2, 5, 3, 7, 4, 9. And that's supposed to be a secret code.
Okay, is this crow a character in the story or just the narrator? There's a difference. The gang wakes up the next morning to form their master plan.
Huh? Who's thought of what?
I don't know, I was thinking that maybe you could try editing your audio, you incompetent Cheeto Puffs! Once they realize that Tryptophan has been captured as well, they spring into action and attempt a daring rescue mission. Oh, but by all means, take your time, there's no rush. This is a good time to bring up that Mr. Bloom never runs in this entire movie, even when the situation sort of demands it. It's played as a joke, but I think it's just to cover up the fact that they don't actually have a run cycle for this character design. And it's not like they're gonna make one. It's still Dingo after all. They successfully break in, but hit a wall when it comes to the alarm system, so Crummel decides to just randomly guess the code.
The numbers.
Wait, the crow can affect what's happening in the story that's currently being narrated? What sense does that make? And if that is the case, why doesn't the crow do anything to help throughout the rest of the movie? Are we supposed to believe that he can change things in the story within the story, but not in the story itself?
Once I decided to get involved, I was consistent.
Whatever. The day is saved, Tabletop is rescued, and Castor and Pollux are defeated, so we finally go back to present day.
And Custer and Pollux have become gods. No one can figure out how they managed that.
It really is something when the movie can't even keep up with its own nonsense.
Easy now. I don't understand a thing.
Well, join the club, buddy. Lucy and Charlie find the pound, and Charlie climbs up to see the scene down below.
Leave them alone, Pollux.
You talk that English just one more time and you'll be given cat food for a week.
Whoa, you sure showed them, Butch.
It better look like it was licked clean. Your mother was very good at that.
Lick and stick, lick and stick.
Well, those two just broke. I'm sure escape will be easy now. Charlie climbs back down and tells Lucy the situation.
One is called Butch and one's Mr. Bloom.
The old junkyard gang. Then maybe things aren't as bad after all.
I'm afraid not. There are 2 other dogs as well. They are the guards. Their names are Castor and Pollux.
Half those names were never stated in that scene, so I guess that Charlie's just psychic. They write a note and throw it down, and the dogs barely have time to celebrate before Castor and Pollux storm in with their sweet walk cycles. At least their feet leave the floor, but it's done in such a goofy way that they look like horses prancing around. Lucy and Charlie coordinate with the prisoners further using notes they bring up and down with a rope. Rick, the husky, mentions that his owner worked for the city and said that he has plans that detail the secret passages that were built around the area. This means that Lucy and Charlie have to find Rick's cousin Como and get his help with finding the plans. I feel like they're making this a little more complicated than it needs to be, but they write it all down and Charlie pulls up the note. Castor and Pollux are doing a bang-up job watching them, by the way.
Come on, let's go. Come on, let's go.
Yes, you heard that correctly. That was a page turning, possibly the script in the recording booth. Preschool plays have higher production values than this trash.
Stop barking or you'll expose us.
Well, the barks are silent, so I don't think you have to worry about that. We meet Como, who has a stutter.
Yeah. How did you know that?
Because we have a message from your cousin Rick.
My cousin? But he disappeared weeks ago.
I think. Considering how bad this dub is, it's sort of hard to tell. They explain the situation, and Como says the owner just threw the plans away, and you need to get it before the garbage man comes. It's really ghetto, at least if you believe the music.
Oh, well, if the police car comes by and sees this mess, we're in trouble.
Oh, then we'll have to find the plan by then.
This can't be true. Another bunch of stray mongrels.
I have the plan. Let's run for it.
Lucy was the one who found the plan instead of Charlie, who was the one actually looking through the trash a second ago because...
You did that pretty well, Lucy.
The three bring back the plans. Mr. Bloom reads them and says that they got lucky, and one of the entrances is in the room that they're currently in. This is either the mother of all lucky coincidences, or the people who were building this pound knew that there was a secret passage under it and just built over it anyway, covering it up with a little bit of soil. Because it's not like dogs dig into dirt or anything.
The way I see it, one can only open the entrance from the outside.
Do you at least know where it is?
In the market.
You can tell from the mountain pirate ship pizza slice. They relay this information back to the team on the outside.
He writes that one can open the door from the outside. And
See, it says so right there. They head back to the market and wait it out so they can open up the passage when nobody's watching.
The excited dogs were waiting for Mr. Bloom to decipher the plan so that they could finally find the secret passage in the wall.
Digging to find stuff in the wall, are they? How is it that the character telling me this story has no idea what actually happened in it? They dig for the trap door and actually find it on their first try, but Castor and Pollux barge in before they can escape.
Don't we take care of you just like your parents? Here's your food.
They can see the giant trap door in the middle of the room right there because the secret passage is open from both sides and the dogs all escape. Castor and Pollux chase them, but they're caught by the dog catcher. I'm sure in a few years they'll become mayor or something. Anyway, everybody is saved and gets their gingerbread hearts. That was Dalmatians 3, and oh boy, that was a cluster of incompetence that you don't see very often. I found myself continuously editing down this review, because if I really talked about all the mistakes that I wanted to talk about, the review would be longer than this 45-minute movie. Honestly though, I think it's worth a watch. It is a comedy of errors, and if you go into it with the right mindset, it can be very enjoyable. Anyway, the top 10 worst hit songs of 2017 list will be released on Christmas Eve. I'll see you then.